For years, I thought my job was to say yes. Yes to the website, yes to SEO, yes to ads, yes to whatever someone needed and was willing to pay me for. Because I could do all of it. And being able to do all of it felt like the whole point. It took me a long time to realize that saying yes to everything was the reason my best clients couldn't find me. Welcome to the Aligned Edit. I'm Veronica Dietz, founder of Taiki Digital Agency, business advisor and diagnostic strategist. I work with founders, consultants, creatives, therapists, and service-based business owners who need sharper positioning, cleaner offers, stronger marketing systems, and a business structure that can actually support growth. This is where we follow the clues, name the pattern, and diagnose what's actually happening beneath the surface. When I started Taiki Digital Agency, I built a digital marketing agency, which meant that if someone needed a website, I could do it. If someone needed SEO, I could do it. If someone needed ads, branding, email marketing, funnels, copywriting, automation strategy, I could do it all. Done for you, here I am. So I said yes to all of it. And here's the thing I want to be really clear about. The problem was never about capability. I was good at this work, all of it. I wasn't faking competence in a bunch of areas. I could genuinely deliver on every single one of these services. I had the skills, I had the experience, I had the receipts. The problem was that capability became my positioning. I was selling services. I was selling the list of things I could do. The longer the list, the more capable I looked, or so I thought. What I wasn't selling was the way I think. And it took me years to understand that way I think was the actual product. Everything else, the websites, the ads, the funnels, was just the delivery mechanism, the vehicle, not the thing itself. But I had built an entire business that led with the vehicle and hid the thing. The turning point wasn't the moment. I wish I could tell you there was a single dramatic day where everything just clicked. There really wasn't. It was a pattern. It was a pattern that repeated so many times that I eventually couldn't ignore it anymore. That pattern that just kept showing up over and over again and just kept getting louder and louder and louder. So client after client would come to me asking for one specific thing. I need SEO. I need a new website. I need Facebook ads. I need branding. And I'd start the way I always start. Before I'd agree to anything, I'd ask questions. I'd spend the first 20, 30 minutes of every conversation trying to understand their business, how they make money, who their clients are, what is actually happening. And almost every single time, I'd realize that the thing they wanted to hire me for wasn't the actual problem they needed to solve. Someone would come to me and say they need SEO, they needed to rank higher, they needed more organic traffic. And I dig in the discovery call and that I'd find out that their offers were just confusing. They didn't have a traffic problem, they had a clarity problem. More traffic would just mean more people landing on something that they didn't understand. SEO would have been a waste of their money. Someone would come to me and say that they needed a new website and the current one was outdated and it wasn't converting. And I dig in and discover that the positioning was unclear. A new website wouldn't fix that. It wouldn't just make unclear messaging look prettier. They'd spend $15,000, $20,000 and end up with a beautiful site that still did not convert because guess what? The underlying problem was never the design. One time someone came to me and they wanted Facebook ads and they needed to scale and they needed to get in front of more people, as many people as possible. And I dig in the discovery call and in the conversation process, I'd find out that it was actually the conversion that was broken. The process from discovering and seeing those ads to committing and buying. The ads would just send more people to a leaky funnel. They just end up spending more money acquiring traffic that was, guess what, never going to convert because the problem was downstream of the ads. So we'd end up doing completely different work than what they originally inquired for. And over and over and over and over again, this would happen. And at some point, I had to be honest with myself about what was actually happening in these conversations because people weren't hiring me because I was a marketer. even though I'm a pretty good damn marketer. People were hiring me because I kept diagnosing the wrong problem they came in with and then finding the right one. I was the person who looked at what they asked for and said, actually, that's not it. Here's what's actually happening underneath. That was the value. It was extremely valuable. That was the thing people remembered, and that was the thing that they told their friends and peers about. It wasn't the website, it wasn't the ads, it wasn't the SEO. In fact, I've had clients be like, I don't even know how to describe you to my peers and to my friends because you're so much more than just my marketing. And that's what it was. It was the diagnosis. It was the moment where they realized they had been about to spend a good chunk of money on the wrong thing. They were about to invest their time, energy, money, all on the wrong problem. And someone caught it before they did. That's the ROI. But here's the problem. My entire business was set up to sell everything except that. So my homepage listed services. My positioning was about capabilities. My inquiries came in asking for specific deliverables because that's what my marketing told people to ask for. And then I'd spend every single call redirecting the conversation away from what they asked for and towards what they actually needed. I was fighting my own positioning on every call. Now, that's tiring. What happened was I had built a business that attracted the wrong requests and then spent all its energy correcting them. That's exhausting, and guess what? It's also backwards. So, of course, what do? I made a change. And I wanted to be precise about this because people always hear about niching down and they think it means turning clients away, saying no to good work, or shrinking your business on purpose. That's not what it is. Niching is not about filtering what you do or who you do it for. It was about changing how people entered my business. Niching is about that outside perspective and your deliverable aligning in a very clear, straight line. Instead of immediately saying yes to a website project or an SEO project or an ads project, what happened was I started requiring something first, a direction session, where before we would have a discovery call, I would send a proposal, you agreed, you signed, you paid, and we'd get started on a kickstarting meeting. And that kickoff meeting was really a direction session undiagnosed. So I pulled the best parts of the experience from the client and realized that the kickoff was a direction session. And this is where the most valuable parts of my deliverables came out of. And it's not because I wanted another billable service to add to the list, and not because it was a clever upsell to pad the invoice, but rather because I genuinely no longer trusted the original diagnosis. I had seen too many founders spend money solving the wrong problem. Hello, it was also me. And I had watched too many people invest in execution before they understood what they were actually executing towards. I had sat across from too many people who were about to make a very inexpensive mistake based on a guess, based off of an assumption, based off general advice someone on the internet told them. And I couldn't in good conscience just say yes to a website anymore, yes to social media marketing, yes to copy, because half the time the website, the social media, the copy, that wasn't the answer. And I knew it before we even started. So the direction session became the filter. Before we did anything, before any execution, before any proposal, we figured out that if the thing they wanted was actually the thing they needed, it was the slowdown before the spend. And everything changed. The conversations changed first. Then the people stopped coming to me asking me to build a website. They started coming to me and asking me for help, to help them understand what was actually wrong. That's a completely different relationship. It's a completely different kind of trust. And when someone comes to you for a website, you're a vendor. And when someone comes to you to understand what's wrong, you're an advisor. The projects got cleaner because we weren't executing assumptions anymore. We weren't building things based on what someone guessed they needed at the start. We were building things based on what we'd actually diagnosed together. The clients trusted the recommendations more because they'd watched me uncover things they hadn't seen themselves, but they resonated. By the time I made recommendations, they understood exactly why. They had been part of the diagnosis. They weren't just taking my word for it. They had seen the evidence and they recognized it as their own. And the quality of clients improved dramatically. I can tell you, the improvement is shockingly good because people weren't hiring a vendor anymore. They were hiring judgment. And people who are hiring judgment are different from people who are hiring hands. They argue less, they trust more, they value the work appropriately. They don't nickel and dime you because they understand what they're actually paying for. And I finally found my true calling. This is where I've always meant to position myself. And I want to be honest about the fear though, because this wasn't an easy decision. I'll tell you that. This took me actually years to transition. It felt genuinely very risky at the time because I was afraid. The fear was that people would think I wasn't enough if I wasn't offering everything. That if I narrowed my positioning, I would be limiting my opportunities. That every service I stopped leading with was money I was leaving on the table. That being specific meant being smaller. That choosing a lane meant losing all the people who were in the other lanes. So, of course, it felt safer to say yes to everything. Yes feels like opportunity. Yes felt like growth. Yes felt like I was every possible door open. I was keeping them all open. I was never cutting off the potential revenue stream. Saying you need to start with a direction session felt like I was closing doors. It kind of was like I was making it harder for people to give me money. Like I was adding friction to my own sales process on purpose. Every instinct I had about the business said, make it easier to buy, not harder. Reduce the friction, say yes faster. But the opposite happened. The more specific I became about how I think, the more valuable everything else became. I didn't lose my capabilities. I could still do the same things. In fact, I keep saying I'm not going to take any more of these done for you website builds and funnels and backends. And I took a client on a couple months ago, maybe a month and a half ago. And I was like, I really don't do this anymore, but I really love what you're working on and I'm very passionate about it. And I would love to help you build this. And of course she said yes, because she's seen my work. She was a straight referral and she's been thrilled with the results. And I even executed it in a quarter of the time that I estimated to because I'm not overwhelmed with multiple to-do projects. I've been focusing on direction sessions and advisory work. So I digress. But my point is, every instinct I have had about business said, make it easier to buy, not harder. Reduce the friction, say yes faster. And the opposite happened. The more specific I became about how I think, the more valuable everything else became. And it was just amazing because I didn't lose my capabilities. Like I said, I could still do all the same things. The website skills didn't disappear. My marketing knowledge doesn't evaporate. I still focus on marketing and learn and educate. I'm in school right now. I'm in school for psychology right now just to improve my skills on sales and copy and marketing. And the years of experience I have already, they're not going anywhere. So I just stopped leading with capabilities and I started leading with my perspective. And perspective, it turns out, is worth a lot more than a list of services. So, a list of services makes you comparable. Sure, someone can put you on a list next to someone else's list and compare prices. But perspective makes you singular. And there's no list to compare. There's just, do I trust how this person sees my business? Here's what I understand now that I did not understand then, though. Founders are constantly making implementation decisions before they have orientation. And they decide that they need a website before they figured out their positioning. And they've decided they need ads before they figured out their conversion. And they've decided they need to rebrand before they figured out what's actually broken. They decided they need to hire before they figured out what the role is even supposed to do. They're solving for execution when they haven't solved for direction. I've said this a lot ever since I discovered this little fun fact, but the compass was invented before the clock because direction matters more than time. So we don't need another opinion on which vendor to hire or which tactic to try or which strategy and framework is for me or which platform to use. Usually, these founders just need someone to slow the decision down long enough to determine whether they're even solving the right problem in the first place. And that is what a direction session is. Marketing became one of my many possible solutions, but not the answer. Just one possible answer depending on what the diagnosis revealed. Sometimes the answer is marketing. Sometimes it's positioning. Sometimes it's the offer. Sometimes it's a business model. Sometimes it's something the founder never would have guessed. Diagnosis becomes the actual product. The business I have today, the direction session, isn't the upsell. It's not the thing I tack on to get the real work. It is the real work. It's the thing I wish existed before founders spent money on agencies, websites, ads, branding, hiring, rebuilding their entire business around assumptions that were never tested. It's the conversation I wish someone had forced me to have before I made my own expensive mistakes. I would say at least the first 5 years, all I was doing was burning money, trying to understand and create a business that was going to be functional and be able to grow. And if I had one expert who offered me a direction session, I would have saved thousands of dollars from one $500 hour. So if there's one thing I'd want you to take away from my story, it's this. You probably think that the thing that makes you valuable is everything you can do, the full range, the complete skill set, all the things that you can say yes to. The longer the list, the more capable you look. But the thing that actually makes you valuable is the one thing you see that other people miss. Your perspective, your judgment, the way you think about problems, the pattern you recognize that nobody else does. People don't hire you because you can do everything. They hire you because they believe you are the right person for one thing. And the moment you get clear about that one thing and what that one thing is, the moment you start leading with it instead of hiding behind a list of services, that's when the right people finally recognize you. That's when the best clients show up. It's not when you say yes to everything. When you get clear about the one thing you say yes to first. And that's the edit. Stop solving around the problem. Name it. If this sounded a little too familiar, maybe I stirred something up inside of you, questions popped into your head, reach out to me. I'd love to chit chat. And don't keep adjusting the surface of the business. Book a direction session with me at veronicadietz.com and we'll look at the positioning, the offer, the marketing, the client path, the structural issues driving the problem together. And we are going to point you in the right direction. You're going to be oriented and you're going to have a 90-day decision map to put your time, effort, and money in the right direction so you get to actually move the needle. It's amazing what can happen in 90 days, and it starts with 1 hour for $500 with Veronica Dietz. So until next week, when the next episode comes out, wishing you a happy 4th of July weekend. Talk soon.